Good Shabbos, everybody. It's good to see you all today. So, at the end of last week's Torah reading, we read that when God created the world, it was good. But then something happened. What happened was that man became evil. He became wicked. And this week, we read in Parshat Noach that the earth became corrupt before God. Vatimale haaretz Hamas. The world was filled with Hamas, with violence, with evil. No, the word or the name Hamas is not a modern day invention. It has existed from the very beginning. And when we know that God was not pleased with Hamas, so he decided to destroy Hamas and with it the world by sending a flood. But then there was Noah. Who was this guy Noah? And why did God decide to save him? And one answer is that the Torah describes Noach as an ish tzadik tamim haya b'dorotav, a righteous man in his generation. But what does that mean? And if you don't know the answer, don't worry, because neither do the rabbis. And they sort of debate. They are divided on whether Noah was considered righteous only because of the generation in which he lived. So in other words, in another generation he wouldn't have been so righteous. Or if Noah would have been righteous in any and all generations. We don't know. But whether the rabbis decide that Noah was righteous or not, I believe that the lesson that we must take away from this phrase is that each generation is different, and each generation has its good and its evil. But hopefully, no matter what that generation is that one lives in, there must always be a Noah. Someone who stands out above the crowd, above the rest of the generation, and is an ish tzaddik. So let's leave Noah's generation for a while. We'll come back to him a little bit later. But let's fast forward. We're going to fast forward past Abraham's generation and even past Moses' generation, right up to today's generation. How would you describe today's generation? Would you call it evil? Some do. One can certainly look at what happened last week in Israel and say the evil is a very apt description. But can you think of another way of describing today's generation if not evil? Two words which come to mind are apathetic and ignorant. We care only about our own lives and well-being. Yesterday, I took some time in the morning to go and have a haircut. And I'm sitting there, and I'm listening to, and I know you don't throw anything at me, okay? But I was listening to the ladies talking around. Why do I say the ladies? Because there were no other men sitting there. It was only me. And they're all talking about how their lives have become disrupted because they're scared to go here and they're scared to go there, and one was supposed to go on a cruise and the other's supposed to go to Israel, and now it's all cancelled and it's delayed, and what they're going to do? Will they get their money back? Our own lives and our own well-being is what is the focus. We are indifferent to the evil happening in the world around us. And we need to educate ourselves about a whole host of crucial issues because, as they say, ignorance is bliss. So now let me go back to Noah for a minute. What does the word Noach really mean? The Hebrew root means, Noach means to rest, menucha. In other words, Noah and his generation were all about resting, all about taking the easy way out, not having to work too hard. Noah just went along with the events. God tells him, Noah, you're to go and build an ark, so I'm going to destroy the world. He says, okay, I'll go and build an ark. Starts, get hammer, nails, wood, gets out, and off he goes. He starts building. Never bothering to make an effort to change, perhaps a change which would have changed the course of history. A change which, well, might have been in his power to do so at the time. If only he tried, if only he weren't so lazy, he might have saved more than just his own family and some animals. Whether you call it apathetic or ignorant, blind or self-centered, this description certainly fits many people today. And it certainly applies to the lax attitude even many Jews have regarding the threats to Israel and the rise to global anti-Semitism. Think of all the anti-Zionism and the anti-Semitism that we've experienced over the past few years. Think about what we've really done to stand up for it. When you think about it, we've done very little. In fact, most people have done nothing. And why not? Because we live in a generation which is not outraged, but rather cares more about our material successes, our luxuries, and pretending that the underlying anti-Semitism just doesn't exist. Yes, we might be good people. Tzaddik b'doro. We might mean well. We might think we're good Jews. We might even do mitzvot. We might give to tzedakah. In other words, we might be righteous, just like Noah was. Tzaddik tamim haya b'doro. But as with Noah, the righteousness must mean something different in each generation. And right now, in our time and in our generation, each tzaddik being righteous means not living with your head in the sand. On the other hand, and not just following what you perceive to be God's instructions to the minutest detail, and think that's enough to say to save the world. I see so many things on Facebook. Come, let's pray together. Let's say Tehillim. Let's pray. We're going to stand and we're going to pray. There's a place for prayer that goes without saying. Today, in our generation, being righteous means that we cannot afford to be apathetic. We cannot afford to be ignorant or self-centered. Today, in our generation, being righteous means speaking out and getting others to see what's really going on. You know, there was a rally, Palestinian rally downtown. I think it was last Friday. So, you know, some of our people, I'm not going to say any more who, but some of our people made sure that they were embedded in the rally. Wanted to see what was going on, wanted to hear, wanted to learn. Information gathering, I think they call it. And he started talking to some of the Palestinians. And when they were saying, well, what about, you know, the killing of babies, slaughtering of babies, women, raping, etc., etc. So many of them said, you really believe that that happened? That's a PR stunt from Israel to give them the right to take over Gaza. Hamas would never do that. They truly believe it. Ignorance. Ignorance is not about righteousness. In order to be righteous, we have to know what's going on. Today, in our generation, being righteous means that we cannot afford this apathy. We cannot afford this ignorance. We cannot afford self-centeredness. Today in our generation, being righteous means speaking out. And yes, getting others to see what's really going on. Getting them to understand that a flood of massive proportions is indeed heading our way. Many celebrities, Jews and non-Jews alike, began to inundate social media with messages decrying the Hamas massacre and supporting Israel and supporting the Jewish community. Very nice. It's very welcomed. But many more have remained silent. They don't want to upset their people. They got their likes to think about on Facebook, their clicks, their followers. And silence, my friends, is complicity. Remember, there are only 15.5 million Jews in the world. Kanye West has 18 million Instagram followers. Do the math. And as we sit here watching these events unfold, we wonder, and certainly not for the first time, what will it take, if it will ever take anything, for the world to wake up and acknowledge without equivocation, without resort to the so-called moral equivalence, and without resort to diplomatic niceties and political correctness, that Israel is facing violence which must be unconditionally condemned, and that, like any other nation, has the obligation, not the right, the obligation, and the justification to defend itself and its citizens through whatever means it feels necessary. And yes, there will be collateral damage. That is the reality of war. But we can sit and we can wait, because we know that in this generation, if Israelis are being slaughtered or raped or kidnapped, they must have done something to deserve it. People wouldn't just do that. We can sit and we can wait, because in this generation, if Israelis mobilize its army to stop the terrorism, then by definition, Israel uses excessive and disproportionate force. We can also sit and wait, because no matter what, we take to heart in knowing that in this generation at least, and certainly as compared to previous ones 80 years ago, that no matter the danger, no matter the threats, no matter the situation, Israel will defend itself as it must, and it will teach the world, which faces its own terrorist threats, a few lessons on how to do so in the process. But while our reaction to this latest round of never-ending violence must be anger and it must be outrage, we must realize that we live in a generation which is not outrage, not at all, but rather cares more about having all the comforts and conveniences in their own lives, and cares more about political correctness and pretending that these kinds of things don't exist. Sounds pretty sad. But you know what? There's good news. The good news is that while it might be impossible to change evil, and while it might be impossible to change the attitudes of anti-Semites, it is always possible to change the attitudes of those who are otherwise apathetic and ignorant. And don't underestimate the role of ignorance in the spread of anti-Semitism. This is our continued fight, day in and day out, along with our fight for the safety and the security of our Israeli brothers and sisters. You know, there is a midrash on the verse in the Torah which reads, "Then God said to Noah, 'Come out of the ark.' The midrash says, Noah said to himself, 'Since I only entered the ark with permission from God, shall I leave without his permission?' And we're told that God responded, the Holy One, blessed be he, said to him, 'Are you looking for permission to come out of the ark? In that case, I give you permission. Then God said to Noah, come out of the ark. Now, what is this midrash all about? The midrash then adds, I'm going to read it to you. The midrash adds, Amar Rabbi Yehuda bar Eli, said Rabbi Yehuda bar Eli, if I had been there, I would have smashed down the doors of the ark and taken myself out of it without waiting for permission. The moral of this midrash, written so long ago, but so apropos for us today. In fact, the only lesson that we can draw from it is that when it comes to rebuilding a shattered world, you do not wait for permission. God has already given us the permission. Tzei min hateva, go out of the ark. He expects us to go ahead. Today in our generation, let us no longer sit and wait like Noah. Rather, let us leave the safety of our own arks and smash down those doors if necessary and do what we must to ensure the safety of not only our generation, not only our brothers and sisters in Israel, but the safety and the security of future generations as well. Let us not hesitate to do so before more blood is spilled. For as God told to Noah and our generations too, we indeed have the permission to do so. Noah made a statement by building the ark. It got people's attention, but you know what? He didn't follow through, and he didn't change anyone else's attitude. And the result, as we know it, were disastrous. Today, we too can build an ark. We too can get people's attention. The means of communications are so much easier today. We can throw out a net very, very wide with our communications. But the question is, will we follow through? Or will we remain apathetic and ignorant and just continue to sit back and enjoy our delicious falafels? The choice is ours. And hopefully, we will awaken to the dangers of apathy. And hopefully, we will now join together in this continuing fight against the world's oldest form of hatred. I want to conclude with the words from the prophet Isaiah. You should look it up, chapter 60, verse 18, which inspire us to know that we will triumph over Hamas. Lo yishama od Hamas ba'artzech, shel v'sheve b'gvulayich, v'karat Yoshua chomotayich u'sha'arayich tehillah. The cry of violence shall no more be heard in your land, nor rack and ruin within your borders. And you shall name your walls victory and your gates renown. Shabbat Shalom.